The lineup cheat sheet combines fantasy analysis and game flow predictions with a confidence scale to give you a definitive answer on who to start in your leagues. The higher the number next to a player's name, the more confident you should be to start him. If a player isn't listed, don't start him. To find a specific player, use your search function CTRL-F on PCs and Command F on Macs. If neither of those are options, or if you're on a mobile device, you can scroll by game. If you're still unsure, just send a note on Twitter at Dave Richard and he'll give it a look, time permitting. Saints at Falcons. Falcons. Drew Brees 7.3, Matt Ryan 7.2, Alvin Kamara 9.2, Devonta Freeman 8.2, Mark Ingram 8.3, Tevin Coleman 6.5, Michael Thomas 8.8, Julio Jones 8.6, Ted Ginn 5.5, Mohamed Sanu 5.2, Saints 4.3, Falcons 2.5. Sneaky sleeper. New Orleans pass defense will be stronger if cornerback Marshawn Lattimore returns, but its run defense has declined and should still be an issue. In the Saints' past 3 games they've allowed 2 rushing scores, 2 receiving scores, 4.4 yards per carry and 10.2 yards per catch to running backs. No surprise, 4 rushers have hit 10-plus fantasy points on the Saints in those 3 games. The short week should give the Falcons an even bigger edge on the ground. Freeman looked good in his return but had the same amount of touches as before his concussion. Coleman should have some decent opportunities and a shot at returning close to 10 fantasy points. Colts at Bills. Bills. Jacoby Brissett 3.6, Nathan Peterman 1.9, Frank Gore 6.9, LeSean McCoy 8.0, T.Y. Hilton 7.7, Zay Jones 4.5, Dante Moncrief 2.4, Deontay Thompson 4.3, Jack Doyle 4.8, Charles Clay 4.3, Colts 3.3, Bills 6.7. Start him in the 6 games since the Bills traded away Marcel Darius. They've allowed 5.2 yards per carry, 6.8 yards per catch and 12 rushing touchdowns to running backs. 8 different rushers racked up at least 10 fantasy points. And just this week, quality run stopper Shaq Lawson was placed on injured reserve. I know trusting Frank Gore has its drawbacks, but he regularly gets a lot of work and has managed to put up decent numbers in favorable matchups. They don't get much more favorable than this. Start him. The Bills' defense continues to lose pieces. Top cornerback Tre'Davious White isn't expected to play after the forearm delivered illegally from Rob Gronkowski last week, and pass rusher Shaq Lawson was placed on injured reserve. That would mean Hilton would line up against the likes of E.J. Gaines, Leonard Johnson and Lafayette Pitts. Even with Jacoby Brissett as his quarterback, I'd take those matchups all day long. He is worth trying as an 0-2 receiver and is a great option in DFS. Cowboys at Giants. Cowboys. Giants. Dak Prescott 7.5, Eli Manning 5.7, Alfred Morris 7.5, Orleans Darkwa 5.4, Rob Smith 3.8, Sterling Shepard 7.6, Des Bryant 8.4, Evan Engram 7.8, Jason Witten 6.4, Giants 3.5, Cowboys 5.9. Start him. There are 2 huge narratives at play here. Dak Prescott is back after throwing 2 touchdowns behind top-notch pass protection last week against the Redskins. 2. The Giants are back after firing Ben McAdoo and making defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo the interim head coach. Spagnuolo has been a master at limiting rushing quarterbacks. Prescott has yet to throw multiple scores or total any more than 18 fantasy points in 3 meetings against the Giants. But Spags had a healthy defense for those games and Prescott had Ezekiel Elliott. Those 2 factors swing the matchup for Prescott, who figures to continue leading the offensive charge without a dominant run game. Tack on the extremely favorable matchup for tight end Jason Witten, and Prescott is worth trusting as a top 12 quarterback once again. Start him. The Cowboys figure to roll out a trio of young cornerbacks on Sunday, likely putting Xavier Woods in the slot against Shepard. The rookie typically plays safety but is forced to move to the slot after the back injury to Orlando Scandrick. It should be a winnable matchup for Shepard, particularly with Eli Manning back under center. They've always clicked, and they should continue to, considering that the Cowboys have allowed multiple touchdowns to receivers and at least 8 fantasy points to at least 2 receivers in each of their past 3 games. Lions at Buccaneers. Lions. Buccaneers. Jackie Root 2.5, Jameis Winston 7.0, Theo Riddick 5.0, Peyton Barber 7.1, Tion Green 4.5, Mike Evans 8.5, Marvin Jones 6.7, Deshaun Jackson 6.0, Golden Tate 5.9, Cameron Brate 7.0, Kenny Golladay 4.4, Buccaneers 5.1, Lions 4.7. Start him. Barber is a pretty decent-sized back with some good cutting ability, but make no mistake, he's not explosive. I bet the Lions think they can slow him down, but the Lions haven't been able to slow down anybody. In their past 7 games they've averaged 4.6 yards per rush and 7.5 yards per grab allowed to running backs. But most importantly, they've allowed 10 rushing touchdowns, 5 from 5 yards or closer and all from inside the red zone. Barber seems like a safe bet to score and pick up at least 50 yards on the ground. Raiders at Chiefs. Chiefs Derek Carr 6.7, Alex Smith 8.3, Marshawn Lynch 7.4, Kareem Hunt 6.6, Jalen Richard 3.9, Tyreek Hill 8.7, Michael Crabtree 7.4, Albert Wilson 3.3, Cordero Patterson 5.7, Travis Kelce 9.1, Seth Roberts 3.2, Chiefs 3.1, Jared Cook 6.3, Raiders 2.1. Start to Mo. So now we're supposed to believe that Smith's bad games before last week just didn't happen. Yes, we are. Smith found his mojo in Week 12 and should keep it going in a simple home matchup against a Raiders defense he diced up earlier this year. Half of the past 6 quarterbacks to play Oakland didn't just score 20-plus fantasy points, they scored 30, including Smith back in Week 7. 2 of the 3 that didn't hit 20 amassed 18 or 19 fantasy points, and the only one to fall under 18 points was Geno Smith. Kansas City has seemingly forgotten about running the ball, dialing up 36.3 pass attempts per game versus 16.3 runs over its last 3. Expect that trend to continue. Risky starter for 5 straight weeks, Hunt has delivered 7 fantasy points or fewer in non-PPR, 10 or fewer in PPR. This has happened because the Chiefs' offensive line has become woefully inept and the coaching staff simply isn't giving Hunt the kind of chances it did earlier in the year. 11 carries or fewer in 3 of his last 4. Worse yet, the guy's been given 3 red zone carries in his past 4 games. 3 now. Oakland's run defense isn't so great, but it took Hunt over 20 touches to amass over 100 total yards back in Week 7 against this defense. Will he get that much this time? 49ers at Texans. 49ers Texans. Jimmy Garoppolo 6.5, Tom Savage 2.1, Carlos Hyde 7.6, Lamar Miller 8.4, Matt Breida 3.6, Andre Ellington 4.4, Marquise Goodwin 7.1, DeAndre Hopkins 9.1, Trent Taylor 4.7, Steven Anderson 6.24, Niners 3.9, Texans 4.1. Sneaky sleeper. Houston has allowed 9 deep pass plays of 20-plus yards over its past 5 games, 6 for touchdowns. That doesn't include the 5 short pass plays that went for 20-plus yards, nor does it include a 22-yard pass on a fake punt. Goodwin has 8 deep receptions of 20-plus yards credited to him this year, representing almost a quarter of his total catches. And last week, he caught all 8 of his team-high targets from Jimmy Garoppolo for 99 yards, all without having to run too deep. The belief is that Goodwin will continue to see a bunch of targets from Garoppolo, but the hope is that some of them will be long balls that Goodwin can turn into big fantasy points. Start him plain and simple. The Texans have run out of pass catchers. Will Fuller, Bruce Ellington, Braxton Miller, C.J. Fedorowicz, that's the list. They all were either inactive or hurt last week, forcing the 6'2", 230-pound Anderson into a prominent role. He played a season-high 71 snaps but took looks in the slot on 60% of them, a sign that he's not a typical tight end. He also notched career highs in targets 12, catches 5 and yards 79 with a score. Now he'll get to do it all over again versus a 49ers pass defense that has struggled with tight ends and tight ends who play receiver from Week 6 on. Anderson is a dynamite choice in DFS and a very good streaming option in Week 14. And Week 15, Packers at Browns. Browns Brett Hundley 4.9, Deshaun Kaiser 4.3, Jamal Williams 7.7, Isaiah Crowell 5.3, Aaron Jones 5.2, Duke Johnson 4.7, Devontae Adams 8.2, Josh Gordon 8.3, Randall Cobb 4.2, Corey Coleman 5.0, Jordy Nelson 2.7, David Njoku 4.7, Packers 5.7, Browns 2.7. Start him. The isn't a Packers defender who can contain Gordon. In fact, the only guy who can hold Gordon back is his quarterback, Deshaun Kaiser. He was off target on several throws to Gordon last week but might have just needed a game to really get into a rhythm with his receiver. No doubt he's looking for Gordon after throwing 11 targets his way last week, tied for the most any Browns receiver has had in a game this year. Before Week 12, the Packers had allowed a receiver to score at least once in 5 straight games. Bears at Bengals. Bengals Mitchell Trubisky 1.7, Andy Dalton 8.1, Jordan Howard 6.3, Giovanni Bernard 7.0, Tariq Cohen 4.6, A.J. Green 9.9, Dontrell Inman 4.0, Brendan LaFell 4.1, Bears 1.9, Tyler Croft 5.0, Bengals 8.4. Risky starter Howard will come into Week 14 without his best offensive lineman and into a tough matchup against the Bengals. In 5 games without right guard Kyle Long, Howard has been below 4.0 yards per carry 4 times, scored once and came up with 10-plus fantasy points twice, never more than 12. He's been held to 5 fantasy points or fewer 3 times, including a donut in Week 2. A larger concern is Howard's lack of carries, 15 or less in each of his last 4, with 3 catches in that span. Since the Bears' bye, Howard's playing time has declined, never more than 31 snaps, while Tariq Cohen and Benny Cunningham take a little more of a share of the offense. Meanwhile, the Bengals have allowed 5 rushing scores to backs on the season and in the last month have held the Jaguars, Titans, Broncos and Steelers to under 4.2 yards per carry. And since the Bears moved to Mitchell Trubisky at quarterback, Howard has just 3 games with more than 6 fantasy points, all double digits. Whether Bengals linebacker Vontaze Burfict plays or not, lower those expectations for Howard. Vikings at Panthers. Case Keenum 6.1, Cam Newton 5.9, Jerick McKinnon 5.6, Christian McCaffrey 6.4, Latavius Murray 5.1, Jonathan Stewart 4.3, Adam Thielen 8.9, Devin Funchess 6.6, Stephon Diggs 6.5, Panthers 4.5, Kyle Rudolph 6.0, Vikings 6.9. Sit him. This is just a brutal matchup for Newton, particularly with his top receiver and tight end banged up with no other real help to support his stats outside of his running backs. But the larger concern is that he's never been able to topple this defense, posting under 16 fantasy points in each of 2 meetings against Mike Zimmer's squad. He has more interceptions for than total touchdowns too, and is even held in check as a runner when he plays them under 50 yards each time. With so many interesting quarterbacks available to help you win, Newton's not worth taking the chance on. Redskins at Chargers. Chargers. Kirk Cousins 5.5, Phillip Rivers 9.0, Samaje Perine 7.3, Melvin Gordon 9.0, Byron Marshall 4.1, Austin Eckler 4.8, Jamison Crowder 7.2, Keenan Allen 9.2, Josh Doctson 5.4, Tyrell Williams 3.5, Ryan Grant 4.9, Travis Benjamin 3.0, Vernon Davis 4.1, Hunter Henry 7.1, Redskins 2.9, Chargers 8.1. Start him. Yup, the last week was a disaster for Crowder after letting a red zone pass hit off his hands and into the mitts of a defender before fumbling on a punt return. But he still managed 5 receptions and maintained a nice receiving average. He also figures to see the lightest coverage of any Redskins receiver lining up against Chargers slot cornerback Desmond King, who has yet to allow a touchdown but has conceded a 77.5% catch rate when thrown on per Pro Football Focus, nearly 30 percentage points higher than his teammates. Washington figures to play from behind, and Kirk Cousins will need to lean on Crowder as a short array of targets since his O-line might not be able to protect him for more than a few seconds. Crowder should remain involved and have a shot to give good production as a number 2 receiver. Jets at Broncos. Broncos. Josh McCown 6.2, Trevor Seaman 2.3, Matt Forte 6.8, C.J. Anderson 5.7, Bilal Powell 6.1, Devontae Booker 4.2, Robbie Anderson 7.8, Emmanuel Sanders 5.8, Jermaine Kearse 6.3, Demaryius Thomas 5.6, Austin Seferian-Jenkins 6.1, Benny Fowler 2.6, Jets 7.9, Broncos 6.5. Start him. Bilal Powell some more snaps and touches last week, but the hunch is that a scoreless series near the goal line last week might give that job to Forte moving forward. Powell and Forte have already been splitting playing time over their past 4 games together, though Forte had an edge in receptions and plays on passing downs. This Denver run defense is a disaster. The usually pass-heavy Dolphins just ran all over them last week. That, coupled with the Broncos' inept offense, should pave the way for the Jets to have an effective ground game. The hunch is that Forte is the better option, especially in PPR, but both are in play as good options this week. Titans at Cardinals. Cardinals. Marcus Mariota 4.1, Blaine Gabbert 4.5, Derrick Henry 6.2, Kerwin Williams 5.8, DeMarco Murray 5.5, Larry Fitzgerald 8.1, Corey Davis 3.4, J.J. Nelson 3.1, Delaney Walker 7.7, Ricky Seals-Jones 5.9, Titans 4.9, Cardinals 6.1. Sit him. Williams is coming off of a very nice game, but it was against one of the league's worst run defenses. By comparison, the Titans' run defense has held opposing running backs to 3.1 yards per carry with 2 scores over their last 6 games. Even with a decent workload, Williams will have to score in order to help fantasy owners. No running back has hit double digits against the Titans without scoring. Williams has 1 score this year and 4 rushing touchdowns in 4 seasons. Eagles at Rams. Rams. Carson Wentz 7.1, Jared Goff 7.7, LeGarrette Blount 6.0, Todd Gurley 9.1, Jay Ajayi 4.9, Sammy Watkins 6.1, Alshon Jeffrey 8.0, Cooper Kupp 5.1, Nelson Aguilar 5.3, Josh Reynolds 2.9, Torrey Smith 2.5, Rams 3.7, Trey Burton 4.9, Eagles 5.3. Sneaky sleeper. It looked like Blount got benched last week after not getting even a single snap from the mid-third quarter on, but his lack of playing time could have been because the Eagles were down by 2 scores, a scenario they've rarely been in this season. Offensive coordinator Frank Reich reiterated again this week that the team will continue to use a committee approach at running back because it's been working pretty well for them. However, Blount is their primary guy near the goal line. Ajayi has all of 1 snap inside the 5-yard line since he joined the Eagles in Week 9. Blount has 5 in that span. Passing downs back, Corey Clement has 3. The key here is the matchup. Los Angeles has yielded 5.5 yards per carry to running backs with 4 touchdowns in its last 3 games. Those stats might single-handedly give the Eagles the motivation to go run heavy on Sunday, which would certainly help Blount. Until Ajayi truly overtakes him as the lead guy, Blount is still the preferred rusher to use for fantasy. Seahawks at Jaguars. Jaguars. Russell Wilson 7.9, Blake Bortles 5.6, Mike Davis 5.9, Leonard Fournette 8.1, J.D. McKissick 4.0, Marquise Lee 7.0, Doug Baldwin 7.9, Deed Westbrook 3.9, Tyler Lockett 3.6, Keelan Cole 3.7, Paul Richardson 2.8, Jaguars 8.6, Jimmy Graham 7.4, Seahawks 7.0. Start him. I must be out of my mind to like a Jaguars receiver playing against the Seahawks defense, but here I am going with it. In the 3 games since coming back to the Seahawks lineup, cornerback Byron Maxwell has allowed a 75% completion percentage for 192 yards and 2 touchdowns, according to Pro Football Focus. Despite this, he's in no danger of being benched, so the Jaguars could opt to target him in the passing game against the quicker Lee. The wideout has 9+ targets in 4 of his last 5, scoring in 3 of those games. The Seahawks have given up a score to a receiver in each of their last 3 without Richard Sherman and Cam Chancellor. Ravens at Steelers. Joe Flacco 4.0, Ben Roethlisberger 8.7, Alex Collins 7.2, Le'Veon Bell 9.3, Danny Woodhead 3.7, Antonio Brown 9.3, Mike Wallace 6.9, Martavis Bryant 6.8, Jeremy Maclin 4.6, Jesse James 3.9, Benjamin Watson 3.7, Steelers 6.3, Ravens 5.5. Sneaky sleeper. The Ravens will have their hands full defending the Steelers' pass game without shutdown cornerback Jimmy Smith on the field. Baltimore is expected to play rookie Marlon Humphrey in Smith's place, improving the matchup significantly for the Steelers. Bryant has always seemed to play better at home, which he did back in Week 12 when he scored his 2nd touchdown of the season in a game Juju Smith-Schuster missed. Smith-Schuster won't play again this Sunday, and Bryant is a cinch to see a lot of single coverage given the role he has opposite Antonio Brown. 6 targets in each of his last 2, he's worth trotting out as a flex or no. 3 receiver. Patriots at Dolphins. Dolphins. Tom Brady 9.2, Jay Cutler 4.7, Dion Lewis 7.9, Kenyon Drake 6.7, Rex Burkhead 7.8, Jarvis Landry 7.5, Brandon Cooks 9.0, Kenny Still 6.2, Danny Amendola 4.8, Devontae Parker 3.8, Patriots 7.2, Julius Thomas 3.5, Dolphins 2.3. Risky starter. In 3 games since Adam Gase took over Miami's offense, Dolphins running backs have averaged 3.4 yards per carry and 6.7 yards per catch against the Patriots, with 1 rushing score, 1 receiving score total, and a fumble lost in each game. Suffice to say, that's not good. Drake looked like Gale